It started with a whisper in a pharmacy, a brain tonic for just 5 cents. It ended with two giants battling for America's thirst, its identity and its loyalty. This is the story of one secret recipe locked in a vault, and one audacious marketing stunt that nearly brought the leader to its knees. For over a century, Coca-Cola and Pepsi have waged a war not with armies, but over your taste buds. In this episode of American Food Wars, we're jumping into the wild world of Coca-Cola versus Pepsi to settle the debate once and for all. Welcome to True History in Minutes, where we uncover the fascinating stories behind the things you use every day. Picture America in the late 19th century. Crowded drugstore counters, tinkering pharmacists, and a nation's tastes in constant flux. From these humble beginnings, a rivalry would emerge so fierce, so entwined with American culture, that whether you prefer Coke or Pepsi became more than just a choice. It became a symbolic allegiance. Our story takes us from Atlanta to North Carolina, from the Great Depression to explosive Super Bowl ad blitzes. We'll explore boycotts, lawsuits, and a moment in 1985 when Coca-Cola gambled its entire identity. We'll follow the rise, the stumbles, and the marketing genius behind the bubbles. So buckle up, because the soda wars are far from over. If you find this kind of content valuable, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. It directly supports the growth of this channel. It all began in 1886. Dr. John Pemberton, a pharmacist in Atlanta, invented a syrup he promised would calm nerves and invigorate the body. He mixed coca leaf, cola nut, sugar, and carbonated water, naming it Coca-Cola. At first, it was marketed as a medicinal tonic. But as Atlanta cracked down on alcohol and drugs, Pemberton and his partners quickly shifted its purpose, marketing it as a refreshing soft drink. The formula evolved, cocaine was removed, and the brand's identity began to crystallize around refreshment, optimism, and modernity. A decade later, in New Bern, North Carolina, another pharmacist named Caleb Bradham created a drink he called Brad's Drink. He soon renamed it Pepsi-Cola, a name combining pepsin and cola, even though the drink didn't actually contain the digestive enzyme. Pepsi presented itself as both healthful and refreshing, a direct competitor in a rapidly growing market. By the early 20th century, both companies were expanding, but they also faced struggles, including supply shortages and the threat of bankruptcy. In fact, Pepsi went bankrupt in 1923. Coke, meanwhile, consolidated its power, staking its future on aggressive branding, bottling, and distribution. Then came the Great Depression, and with it, a brilliant move from Pepsi. They started selling a 12-ounce bottle for just 5 cents, the exact same price as Coke's much smaller 6-ounce bottle. This value proposition made consumers sit up and take notice. Pepsi's gamble paid off, and sales surged. Coke, dominant and a bit complacent, often refused to see Pepsi as a real threat. That was a serious miscalculation. During World War II, Coca-Cola's influence soared. The company secured priority access to sugar and other resources, promising that every American soldier, no matter where they were stationed, could get a Coke for 5 cents. To make this happen, Coke built bottling plants near battlefields. This not only fueled its brand as part of the war effort, but also gave it a symbolic place in the hearts of GIs. Pepsi, lacking those government privileges, lagged behind, but it never gave up the fight. By the 1970s, soft drinks weren't just about sugar and fizz anymore. They were about image, youth, identity, and psychology. In 1975, Pepsi launched a bold and brilliant campaign, the Pepsi Challenge. At malls all across America, everyday people were asked to sample 2 unmarked cups, one with Pepsi, one with Coke, and pick their favorite. The results were shocking. In many of these blind taste tests, people chose Pepsi. This simple, guerrilla marketing tactic struck a powerful blow against Coke's dominance. Suddenly, Pepsi wasn't just the underdog anymore. They were proving themselves in real time against the heavyweight champion. The narrative began to shift. Pepsi was daring, youthful, and rebellious. Coca-Cola, by comparison, risked being seen as stodgy, safe, and old. Coke fired back with ad campaigns that emphasized its heritage, tradition, and emotional connection, famously declaring, "It's the real thing." They leaned into nostalgia, unity, and classic Americana. Pepsi countered with slick pop culture tie-ins and endorsements from young celebrities. The marketing war had begun, and it was about to get even more intense. By the early 1980s, Pepsi had closed much of the market share gap, and Coke's leadership was getting worried. What if their own legendary formula had grown stale? In 1985, in a move that sent shockwaves across America, the company introduced a new, sweeter formulation, New Coke. The idea was to bring its flavor more in line with modern palates and closer to Pepsi's taste profile. The rollout was huge, it was bold, and by many accounts, it was incredibly reckless. The public backlash was immediate and emotional. People felt betrayed. Angry letters poured in, protests erupted, and consumers began hoarding cases of old Coke wherever they could find them. The formula change had struck a deep nerve. This wasn't just about soda, it was about identity. Some people even declared they would rather see the American flag torn down than have Coke's formula changed. Just 79 days later, Coca-Cola quietly reintroduced the original formula as Coca-Cola Classic, effectively admitting defeat in the court of public opinion. The new Coke experiment became a legendary cautionary tale in branding and consumer loyalty. But here's a twist. Some speculate that New Coke was actually a calculated marketing ploy, a brilliant way to generate buzz, make people rediscover their love for the original, and reassert its cult status. Whatever the truth, the gambit worked, and Coke's fortunes were reversed. Meanwhile, Pepsi didn't pause for a second. In the mid-90s, they launched a promotion called Pepsi Points, offering rewards for collecting points from their products. One ad playfully showed a military jet as a possible grand prize. A clever young man named John Leonard took that ad literally and attempted to claim the jet. What followed was a David versus Goliath courtroom showdown that made national headlines. Pepsi argued the ad was obviously a joke, and eventually the court sided with them. But the case is still studied today as a landmark in contract law. However, not all of Pepsi's promotions were so amusing. In 1992, a number fever lottery in the Philippines spiraled out of control when a printing error led to hundreds of thousands of people believing they had winning numbers. The mistake triggered riots, violence, and tragically at least 5 deaths. The promotional disaster tarnished Pepsi's image and serves as a dramatic reminder of how brand stunts can go horribly wrong. While the U.S. was the main battleground, both Coke and Pepsi had their eyes on the rest of the world. Coca-Cola became a symbol of American soft power, spilling into foreign markets alongside U.S. influence and embedding itself in global culture. Coke's expansion in the post-World War II era rode a wave of American confidence and global trade. Pepsi sought to compete on flavor, youth, and daring. It pivoted to music stars, edgy sponsorships, and more aggressive marketing, especially in developing markets. At times, Pepsi even made inroads where Coke was resisted, positioning itself as a cultural underdog appealing to modernity. In many countries, the choice between Coca-Cola and Pepsi became shorthand for tradition versus progress, East versus West, or old versus new. The soda war mirrored other global conflicts of identity and power. Today, the cola wars have softened, but they've never truly ended. The battlefield has simply shifted. Now the fight is over diet drinks, zero-sugar formulas, flavored extensions, bottled water, and energy drinks. Overall, soda consumption in many markets is declining due to rising health awareness. And yet, variety, branding, and nostalgia still hold enormous power. In recent years, Pepsi has even lost its position as the clear number 2 soda brand in the U.S., being overtaken by Dr. Pepper in certain metrics. Despite that, the legacy of this war is clear. These two brands forced each other to constantly innovate, to dig deep into consumer psychology and to create cultural associations that go far beyond just sugar and caffeine. They defined modern advertising, shaped how we think about brand identity, and showed how consumer loyalty can become a tribal choice. At its core, the battle between Coke and Pepsi is about more than just soda. It's about belief, identity, and trust, and how two companies pushed a nation into thinking so deeply about what it drinks. So next time you crack open a can, just pause for a moment. That hiss, that moment of anticipation, isn't just about flavor. It's the sound of a war that's been raging for more than a century, a war that has shaped marketing, culture, memory, and even law. The soft drink aisle is our battlefield, and we are the battleground. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit subscribe, ring the bell, and let me know in the comments. Are you Team Coke or Team Pepsi? Thanks for watching True History in Minutes, and we will see you in the next episode of American Food Wars.